Meet Julie Pearson. Julie is a real estate professional with FNC Realty Group. She's an investor, a flipper, a wife, mom, author, just an all-around exceptional human being to know. She's somebody that you want to have on your side through any transaction. Julie took some time out of her day to share with us what her flipping journey was like. Her first flip, the things that she learned and could possibly benefit you if you're considering getting into investments by way of flipping. So let's take a minute and see what Julie has to say and if it can help you. You are not only an agent, you are an active flipper.
Yes.
And when it comes to investing, a flipping is a different type of animal.
Absolutely.
So flipping, was that always the plan?
It was never the plan. Obviously, during COVID, I think there were a lot of transitions that happened in people's life, right? So my husband and I, we were stuck at home watching HGTV and just said, we can do this. Let's do this. He was from a small town in Oklahoma, and there were a lot of old homes there, just full of character. And we thought, let's go back to his small town that he grew up in, and let's do this. And so it was never the plan. I was kind of in a shift personally, professionally in my life. And so we just took the leap of faith, jumped in, and it's been fun. It's been great. Lots of challenges, but it's been very exciting and fun.
How did you find your first flip? How did you know it was the one?
Yeah. Well, before we started, we knew we had a little bit of a team already. We had his two cousins. One was a contractor, and actually not a contractor, but into construction. And then one was a realtor. So we got on the phone, started talking to each other, and said, let's partner together and do it. So my cousin, who was an agent, obviously had access to the MLS. And so I flew out, I think it was in July of 2020, just to kind of get to know the area. And we didn't really find anything, but the day after I flew home, she called me and says, I have the property. I found one on the MLS, and it was cute. It had so much character. So we went from there.
Okay, so you found the house, and it wasn't one that you necessarily stepped into.
Mm-mm.
So let's talk numbers. Did the numbers dictate that was the one? How much in advance did how well did you know your numbers before you pulled the trigger on buying that property?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it was kind of the blind leading the blind, right? We were all beginners at this. And so we originally, before even finding a property, we did agree. I was in partnership with my cousin, who was the agent, financial partnership. So we kind of came to an agreement as to, okay, what can we, what's our initial investment, shared initial investment, what we could do. And so we came up with that number, and the property that came on the MLS fit our number. Now we had my other cousin, who is in construction, actually go and look at the property and verify, okay, we'll just get an eyeball of, what's it going to cost to do this. And again, we're all beginners at this thing. And so, he just, he did his best in doing an eyeball estimate. And after we kind of figured out the estimate of what it would cost to repair, it made sense for us. On paper, it made sense. And so we're like, let's do it. Let's not hold back. Let's jump in.
Awesome. Well, okay. So seeing as how we're talking about budget, and were you able to stay within your budget, or were there surprises? We always see on HGTV or hear horror stories about, there was something that you just weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the case here?
Well, I feel like on HGTV, they portray it as you're going to make all this money, right? It's usually, you always see the win, not the loss. But we went about $13,000 over budget because we kind of had a unique situation. The reason why it actually looked like a good investment is we kind of got a 2-for-1. There was a small house on the side that was within the lot line. So the price included the big house and this little 1-bedroom home. So our initial thought was, we thought that's how we kind of designed our numbers, was thinking this little house was kind of a freebie for us. So as we were kind of starting, we were going to do the small house first. As we started our process, we realized this small house would have had way too much work for us. It was going to be a way bigger investment. Let's try and sell it by itself. So we had to do it. It was our first one was very complicated. We had to split lot lines. We had to go through just a lot of logistics to fulfill kind of our illusions of grandeur. And so we realized that we could not do the first one on our own. It would bust us. So we're like, let's just put it on the market. Thankfully, we sold this little one to an investor. So we were already like $15,000 ahead, which was great. But then our budget was about $13,000 over. And there's always surprises. We realized it was our electrician was double the cost. We didn't realize we had to do a full rewire. So as a beginner, you just don't know these things until you kind of get in. But thankfully, we prepared ourselves for some wiggle room, and we didn't make a huge profit, but we didn't lose either on our first one. I want to talk about learning lessons. The first thing that we learned was get an architectural plan together, especially if you're going to do a full remodel. This was a full remodel. We didn't put architectural plans together, so we kind of felt like we were doing it ad hoc, in anything in life, like get your plan on paper and work the plan. So we learned big time that we need to hire an architecture, especially for a full remodel. Also, we learned that, as a beginner, you kind of have these illusions of grandeur. We made it very complicated by splitting all these lots. And so we realized, keep it simple. That is a big, huge lesson, I think, as a beginner investor, is keep it simple. We also learned that, we were not experienced working with subs. My cousin, he was kind of his own guy. He didn't really have experience working with a lot of subcontractors. So we didn't really understand the dynamic of that, and keeping them to timelines. So that was a huge lesson that we learned of just how to work with subs and keep them to timelines.
And talking about timelines, did it take longer to complete the house than expected?
Absolutely. You're going to be very surprised by this. It took 13 months. 13 months from start to finish. We went through 2 escrows. So it was a very complicated escrow. There were just a lot of barriers. But, the thing about life is that, you learn from your failures, you learn from your mistakes, and we just kept going. Yes, we ran into a lot of issues with escrows and the actual rehab, but we just kept the faith and we just kept going, and we just knew, okay, we got to cross this finish line. And thankfully we did. We had, back in Oklahoma, there's weather issues. So we had to deal with that too. That really delayed us. But the main thing is, and also another thing that I learned is, going in with partnership, especially with family, can be a little difficult too. So
dinner with family can be difficult.
Yes, dinner with family can be Thanksgiving dinner with family can be very difficult, right? So, we knew that we couldn't do it on our own at first, but I don't think that I'll do a partnership again. It adds a little more complication in it. So
it didn't scare you off. Have you done another flip since your first one?
Yes. We're in the midst of our second one right now, and we're going to be probably putting it on a market probably 5 weeks from now. So that's exciting. It'll be a 6-month project instead of a 13 months. So we've learned a lot of things. And so again, this is a full regut. The homes back there, we're looking at early 1900 homes. So there's a lot of foundation work and a lot of just, full regut. So those take more time. But yeah, we're excited. We had to do a lot of demo with our second one, but now, and still it's not perfect. We're still learning along the way. We took the lessons that we learned from our first one, especially with the subcontractors, and we're still building our database. I think that's the most important thing, especially as a remote investor. You got to build a solid team. You've got to build a solid team. You got to have trust in your team too. So thankfully, I have a cousin back there that is in the industry of contracting. So but he's learning himself too. So you got to have a contractor on your team. You got to have an agent on your team. Subs. You also need to understand the city. Because you're dealing a lot with the city as well, city permits. So a well-established team is going to suit a remote investor very well. So the first year, I dug into podcasts, the Bigger Pockets. I would recommend Bigger Pockets as a new investor. I would take walks around my neighborhood. I got my earphones in and I would just soak in, all learning from the experienced. And there's actually a great book that they've put out because I had no idea what things cost. And so they actually put together a great blueprint to help beginners like myself as to, what does a full re-roofing look like? What does a full rewire look like? So I use their template as a guide, and I would really recommend that. And, the costs are pretty standard across the board. So that was really helpful.
From the first one that you did to the second one, are you gradually increasing the size of your project, or do you prefer to keep your project small and mini?
Yeah, that's a good question. These first two that we've done, they've been very big projects. I feel like we kind of went big first, That's not all that bad because you do learn a lot in the big. I think my cousin who is running the project would like to see us do more of a lipstick. That's kind of a terminology in the investment world, a lipstick project. But again, it's hard to do that in where we're investing because the homes are so old.
Well, seeing as how they are old, and you do a lot of work in Corona and Riverside, and there are historic homes. Does that change the conversation with the buyers that you do represent? Do you point out things in the historic homes or the areas, like has all of that your learning curve, has it helped you?
Yes, it absolutely has helped me because I had zero experience in construction. Like I didn't even know, where the main water line was. I didn't know a lot of that stuff, and so now I'm able to have a little more education under my belt and working with buyers and understanding what I love to do right now because I have this vision of tearing down walls, right? And I have this vision of open concept, and so because that's what we're doing with our flips, so I'm able to kind of help buyers as they walk in with that, like helping them create vision, because a lot of the houses are old and that's what people are looking at right now. So I love that part of being an agent is helping my buyer formulate some vision as to what they could do.
Well, there you have it. Thanks so much, Julie, for taking the time out of your day to share your journey. I'm sure we've all learned something, and we now know that we can add visionary to your list of titles that you carry. We look forward to seeing more of your flips, and if you want to check out the ones that she currently has, connect with her on the gram, Julie P. Real Estate, or you can call her direct, 949-370-1509. If you're looking to connect with Julie and have questions about buying a home, investing, flipping, she's more than willing to help you out and take your call.